Last week I told the story of a friend of ours, Gary, who had passed. But just before he passed away, a woman named Suzanne, a friend of ours, had been going around their house to just be with Gary and to support he and his wife Mary as he was getting closer to dying. And literally the night before Gary died, Suzanne went over to their house. It was a cold winter night, and Mary had a fire going in the fireplace, and Gary was in his reclining chair by the fire there, just resting and really in a semi-comatose state. And Suzanne came in from out of the cold, sat down next to Gary, and took his hand in hers, and he raised up because of the temperature difference between her hands and his, and he exclaimed, "My, your hands are cold." Well, she immediately began to pull her hands away from Gary, but he was quicker still than she was, grabbed her hands in his, and just began to rub her hands and try to warm them up. And Suzanne, of course, was impacted greatly by that here's a man dying, and her hands have just awakened him, and trying to pull them away so as not to give or provide any discomfort to him, he grabbed her hands back and started warming them. And knowing Gary and who he was as a servant, and knowing how thoughtful he was to literally everybody he encountered, friend or stranger, it didn't surprise me that that was the kind of action he would take in that moment. And I got to thinking, what is it that creates that kind of spirit in a man who, even though he's the one dying, is still literally reaching out to those around him? And I could only come up with one thing, and that is the Holy Spirit of Jesus actively at work in a man's soul as well as his mind, to cause him, even in his own desperate state, to be caring more about other people than himself. It made me think in Luke chapter 22, verses 49 to 51, where Jesus, in the Garden of Gethsemane, has just been confronted by those who are going to take him captive, to persecute him, torture him, and ultimately kill him, that he'd still be thinking about others. Because in that moment, his followers, all thinking they were doing the right thing, pulled their swords out, and one of them, Peter, cut off the ear of the high priest's servant, cut off the ear of one of those who was there to attack Jesus. And Jesus, in the moment of his own need, said, "None of this. Put your swords away." And he took the time to pick up the guy's ear, put it back on his head, and heal him. Some hours later, Jesus is hanging on the cross in Luke 23, verses 42 and 43, and there's two criminals on both sides of him, one of them hurling abuse at him, and the other one saying, "Don't talk to Jesus that way, because this man, Jesus, has done nothing wrong." And yet here he is hanging with us common criminals. And this one criminal cries out, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus, again, in the midst of his own suffering and dying, is thinking about this man in a desperate place next to him, and says to him, "You don't have anything to worry about, because today you're going to enter with me into paradise." I don't know about you, but I hope that I will always live to be a man like Gary was, and like my Jesus was, that in the height of my own suffering, and even possibly dying, I am still extending myself to help other people. And there's only one way that can be possible, and that's because the Spirit of God is alive and well inside of your soul, even when your body's dying. I hope that you aspire to be that kind of man or woman like I do. God bless you. Thank you for watching Soul Steps today. We appreciate it. Please remember to visit our website at soulsteps.org. There you'll find opportunities to ask for prayer. There's a list of volunteer needs that we have so you can help us grow and develop our team and this work. And it'll show you opportunities for giving financially as you're able. We appreciate your support in every way. And remember that soul steps are important today because God cares about who you are and how you live. God bless you.